attention. Oh, is that what that was? What's up, everyone? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph, and that's right. Today we're going to do another top 10. We're going to talk about games that we think should be in the top 100 of BGG.
Yes.
Now, if you don't know, Board Game Geek is kind of like the IMDb for board games. If you're here, you probably know what it is, but just in case you don't.
Board game directory.
Yeah, huge. Every single game ever made is on there. There are forums there. You've probably, even if you don't know what it is, you've probably been on BGG before when you're looking up a rule for a game kind of thing.
Probably, yeah. If you've been Googling something, it's probably brought you to Board Game Geek at some point. It's an incredible resource for board games and board gamers and stuff. There are forums, designer diaries, all sorts of ways to engage with and rank games, rate games, and participate in the kind of community online.
Yes.
And part of this, by going and ranking games and leaving reviews and stuff, it creates an all-time list of the best possible games.
Yeah.
From 1 to 100,000, they have entries now, in order of things that people agree on, typically, as the most popular games, the best games in the world.
This of course, you can rate games on there. It's based off of those ratings.
Yes, and so you going in and rank games does actually change things around. And there are the top 100 games. It's a great place to look if you're already in the hobby a little bit. That's one thing we always like to kind of caveat. It's like if this is your first week in board gaming, do not go to the top 100 games on BGG because it might melt your brain right out of your skull.
The games tend to skew much heavier, much bigger because, again, it's mostly for experienced gamers.
Yes.
It's a very accurate list for BGG users, but for brand new people, it's not always the best. But nonetheless, people are constantly talking about the BGG top 100. What if it breaks into the top 100? People, it's always a big deal. You know, the #1 game of all time changes like once every couple of years, maybe. So it's always a big, big deal when something gets into the top 10 on BGG. So we're gonna talk about 10 games that we think should be in the top 100. Now, this is not necessarily just because we personally like those games. Sometimes there's a bit of that, but it's also because of other reasons, like just like significance in the hobby, various reasons.
Things they could do to, bring board gamers into the hobby, things like that.
Indeed. Now, over on our Patreon, we are going to have the other half of this list, which is going to be 10 games that we think should not be in the top 100. So if you want a little bit of a spicy list, head over to our Patreon. It'll be there for our patrons. Make sure to check it out today.
Those are games that are in the top 100 that we think should get booted out and replaced with the ones we made. So if you want to see what games we think shouldn't be in here.
There's also tons of first impressions, a bunch of other stuff over there, so make sure to check it out. But let's go ahead and get into it,
Let's do it.
Karen, Simon, we got to tell you that don't worry. The house, it'll be done in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks easy.
Tops.
Toby's on it, all right?
Okay, we'll get to that. All right.
Just one second. Hey, y'all, if you're wondering what that reference was about, don't worry. It was for a very, very specific person, and you're not allowed to get it.
You're not allowed to get it, but if you subscribe, we can send personal message to you and your family. Now, that's not true. But
that's not true at all.
Just click it anyway.
Don't worry.
Click subscribe. Go ahead.
Number 10 is going to be Horrified.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Get wrecked, y'all.
You're like, what? Listen, Horrified is a cooperative game where you are different players with a bit of a unique ability, and you are going around to different areas of the map, grabbing items, and dealing with these monsters. In the original Horrified, which is the one that we would kind of suggest for this, because it uses Universal movie monsters like Frankenstein's, and the Bride, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and Dracula and stuff.
Yeah. Very recognizable.
You are going to have multiple baddies that you are going to defeat, and they're going to need certain items in certain combinations in certain areas. And so it's all about going around the map, getting items to the right areas, turning them in to kind of study and then defeat the bad guys. So this is one that we recommend because it's cooperative.
Yes.
It has some, if you played pandemicness to it, where you each have
kind of
action points on your turn. There's crisis management, things are happening on the board that you need to react to. You each have a little bit of a power, and you can kind of scale the difficulty based on how many monsters, which monsters do you use, because some of them are easier and harder. And there's a lot of appeal, I think, with the kind of classic horror movie characters that I think brings a lot of kind of like broad appeal.
Yeah, and that's kind of more what it is. I mean, I don't think this is in either of our top 100s, but it's just, or if it was, I don't think it was in mine at least. But it's like, yeah, this is, we like the game a lot, but it's like, it's that kind of like broad appeal and just overall really, really good, really solid game. There are, again, multiple versions of this game too, but the Universal Movie Monsters is probably the I don't know if it's the best one, but it's the first one, stuff like that. But yeah, so it just feels like this is something that should be in there. I don't have necessarily a very specific reason as to why. It just feels like it should. It's got that broad appeal, and because of that, I do think that should be a factor in here to some degree. Yeah. Some ones are going to get booted off because like this is such a niche game that I'm just like, get it out of the top 100, you know? Yeah. And so, nonetheless, Horrified, yeah, it just feels like, I don't think it should be very high, but I think it should be like the 90s to 100 or so. I think it should be in there.
Just because like it's a cooperative game, it does something different. It does something that like, again, the version of the top 100 that we like to create would be a little more kind of with the goal of trying to get board gamers into the hobby, which is always our goal, is bring board gamers in. And so something like this, I think, really rounds out that top 100 well.
Yeah. I thought number 9 was in the top 100.
I kind of thought so too. This is Space Base, or Space Bass as it is legally called.
Yes.
This is a game that, I mean, I guess it's not low ranked by any means, but I guess it never did kind of crack into the top 100.
Or if it did, it got booted out, yeah.
Kind of seems like it should or would.
It should be, yeah. Again, kind of a similar situation where it's like, it's got that kind of broad appeal, and like most people, I mean, this game has been wildly successful, and it's just one of those games that it just, I don't know, it just feels like it should. This is a game, an engine building game, where you are at a space base, basically, and you have your set of 12 cards, which are kind of like generic cards, and then on your turn, you're going to roll dice, and then you can either put those 2 dice together to make their value, or you can keep them separate. And you're basically going to activate the ships in those slots, because the slots go from 2 to 12. So if you have like a 4 and a 4, you can put them together to make 8, and you can activate your 8 ship. Generally, the higher value ships do a lot cooler stuff. But then most of what you're doing is you're getting money, and you can spend that money to buy new ships. And when you buy new ships, they go into a certain slot, and then the card that's already there gets flipped around and gets put behind your board, and those will activate on other people's turn. There's a lot of games that do kind of like no downtime. You get to do stuff on other people's turn, but I feel like this is one of those, the most popular games that does that, where whenever someone rolls dice, you're then, if it's not your turn, you're going to look at the back of your cards, the other cards that are above your board, and if you match any of those, you get to activate those. So it's really nice because you're always doing stuff, you're always activating things. It's just, I don't know, and again, it's just one of those games. It's been massively popular.
Yeah, it just had another expansion recently.
Yeah,
like
so it's like, this is more like, it just feels like it was, or maybe it was and it isn't, but it just feels like it should be still.
Yeah, it's just one that I think like it has a really nice cadence to it that ramps up nicely. You get to feel kind of the yourself powering up. It just does a lot of good things, and you're always engaged with the game, and it keeps it moving quickly. The turns aren't overly long or complicated. It just does a lot of things that we really enjoy. Yeah. Like this one creates like really fun times every single time that we've at least personally experienced it. And that's why it should be there. Next up is Just One.
Just one.
If you need just one game, you should get just one.
Nah, that's not true.
Okay, well, fair enough. This is a great party game.
Yeah. More party games should be in the top 100.
More party games should be in the top 100.
More party games should be in the top 100.
I'll say it. They are always going to get more play than any other normal game in the top 100 because they are replayable, playable, and you can play with lots of people.
Yeah, and that's not the only reason they should be in the top 100, but that is definitely a factor. It's like, how often is this game actually getting played?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Just One is a fantastic light party game where you are working cooperatively to all give clues to one person who's playing as the guesser, and then each turn the guesser changes. And you're going to have a prompt. Everyone but the guesser, of course, gets to see the prompt. The example I like to use is like baseball. And we are trying to get this person to guess baseball. And we are each going to, on our little stand, our little dry erase stand, write a one-word clue. That's going to hopefully point toward baseball. The trick is, and the whole twist of this game, is that if anybody writes down the same clue as anybody else, all repeat clues get erased. Yeah. So if everybody's like, diamond, baseball diamond, I'm going to do that. And everyone writes diamond, all those get eliminated, and you're only going to be able to show the guesser the leftover unique clues. So you're trying to think in an abstract way. You're trying not to give the obvious clue because you don't want to do something that's repeated, but you also need to give a clue that points to baseball and gets people to maybe do hat or something. So you're always kind of like overthinking something because you're like, I got to do something that's really specific and different. And then two people do socks, and you're like, what? Like, what? Yeah. Why did we do that?
That's why it's great, though. It's
you know, and that's what's fun.
Yeah, because you end up getting in your own way a lot, which is kind of the whole purpose of the game. But yeah, this is, again, one of those games that's got like such great appeal. You can play this game with anybody. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I mean, you'll see this kind of throughout this list that like there's not really going to be many like big heavy games because the BG Top 100 is full. It's almost exclusively like generally middleweight and up.
Large.
A lot of them,
games.
these are BGG users who tend to skew much heavier. So like, yeah, like the top 10 is just like massive games. And there needs to be lighter games in there. And we think this is one because of that broad appeal. It's so easy. You can play it with anybody, kids, grandparents, whoever you can play. It's so easy to get to the table that it really should be there. And there's a lot of these kinds of word association games, but I really do think Just One is just like the simplest, the easiest to just get into and go.
Yeah, totally agree, and that's why it's on our list. Next up's a classic, Carcassonne.
I mean, for first of all, again, like I didn't realize that Carcassonne wasn't in the top 100. But then on top of that,
I'm sure it was for quite some time in the past.
And there's a couple on here that like I know for a fact were at some point. But Carcassonne, one, because it's a great game, but also just like there's just the significance of Carcassonne. I mean, it has brought same reason why like I don't think Catan's in there. And Catan should be it's not on our list to be fair, but like Catan should probably be in the top 100. It's like just for the sheer significance it has been to the hobby.
Yeah.
It's like Carcassonne should be in there. And again, that's not the only reason. It's still also a really great game.
Yeah.
That can't be the only reason because then Monopoly should be in there technically. And I'm like, nah, we're cool.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, Carcassonne, again, it's just that classic tile laying game where you're putting out tiles, you're making the landscape make sense, you're building out Carcassonne, you're claiming roads, trying to get points, claiming cities, trying to get points, getting in each other's way. It's just so simple. I mean, when I used to work at the rehab, I ran kind of like a board game group.
Yeah.
And this and King of Tokyo were like consistently like the most popular games because you can teach them to people detoxing, y'all. I'm telling you right now.
So people not in their best state of mind.
Not in the most ready mind state. If I can teach it to detoxing 18-year-olds, you know, it's like you can teach it.
Anybody.
You can kind of go with anybody. And then it just makes sense. It's satisfying watching this game grow.
Yes.
It's one of those games where it's like if they've only played mass market games like Sorry or Clue or something, this is so different. It's like, you know, there isn't a board game. There isn't a board, rather, to this board game. Yeah. It's just tiles. And you build out the kind of big board as you're going. It's just so cool. And again, for significance reason alone, it should be in there somewhere.
I agree, yeah. I think it's really fun. There's a high satisfaction level. It's appealing, it's great family weight, but there's some fun things to think of, and you can get pretty darn competitive with it if you care to up your game and stuff. Yeah. And so there's kind of a lot to mine, and there's, if you enjoy it, a bajillion expansions and versions to play. So it's kind of a really great starting point, which is why, you know, a lot of people, this is one of the first games they ever play, and as a result, I'm like, well, it should be represented in that top 100 of all time.
This is probably the biggest game on our list, yeah?
This is the... Yeah, this or another one, but yeah.
This would be Rajas the Ganges. Again, a game
this is more of a personal pick, you know?
Yeah. This seems like a game that would be in the top 100 in terms of what the top 100 is usually made up, which is like middleweight and above games, very, very Euro-y games. This is that. Rajas the Ganges is by Marcus Eakin Brand, who make bigger Euro games, great games. And this is a game where it's a worker placement game where you are placing your workers out onto the board at these various worker placement spots, and you are usually having to spend your dice, these big chunky dice, and that is kind of your currency in the game.
Yep.
Because a certain spot, if you want to get this certain tile, it'll take a value of 10 of blue dice. You can turn like a 6 and a 4, that would be 10. You can then get that tile. You want to move to the river, it's going to take a value of 1, 2, or 3, but the color doesn't matter. So again, the dice are your money, essentially, your currency. And you're moving up 2 different kinds of tracks, the money track.
The actual money track.
Yeah, the actual money track, and then the fame track, and then the game will end once someone crosses those tracks. So it's kind of one of the first games to do that concept. Yeah. Now, like a couple other games, particularly Arc Nova, has made that very, very popular. But Rajas the Ganges is one of the first ones to do that. And it's just so good. And again, this just seems like a game that would be in the top 100.
I agree. It's got a lot of the things that you see in those top 100 games, but I really enjoy the dice aspect. I think that's really unique. I think that's something that we haven't seen in other games, where you have these different colors and values of dice and the way you're kind of working them all together. To mostly purchase tiles to put on your player board and then get to bonuses and stuff and work on getting these markets to sell goods or working to get these buildings to go up the fame track. So like it does a lot of those Eurogame things where it puts together a lot of different types of things into a really neat package. But with the theming and the dice and stuff, I think it does something that's really cool. So I would happily slot out a similarly weighted Eurogame for Rajas of the Ganges because I think it provides some stuff that some other games don't do or might be a little too similar to other games in the top 100.
There's a lot of similarity in the top 100.
So this is our please put this midweight Euro in the top 100. We love that.
That midweight Euro, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's why it's in there.
At Zenith Corporation, we believe that the future of humanity lies beyond the stars. We're pioneers, explorers, cultivators.
Don't trust the Zenith Corporation. I'm one of their workers. I'm here tending to the farm making space berries and things. But here's the thing. They don't tell us why we're making these things. They just send us to the forest to chop down trees, find resources, turn them in, put them into the all-important cargo manifest. They give us these goals to do, but we don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing with the resources once we send them in. I'm just trying to make a living for my family and my space dog and my space parents and all the things in space. And listen here, I'm going to need your help to help take down the Zenith Corporation once and for all. The best way to take down the Zenith Corporation is to think like the Zenith Corporation. Follow the link in the description of this video to the Board Game 10. It is a blueprint on everything Zenith, and if we can master that and these supposed tasks they have us doing, we might have a chance once and for all to uncover the truth of this mystery. Oh, they're coming. I'm just working, boss. I'm just working. Don't worry about it. I'm just working.
At Zenith Corp, we cultivate tomorrow, today. Join the Tend Initiative, and together, we'll shape the future of humanity.
Again, significance, right? And this is pandemic.
We're talking OG.
Yes,
Pandemic.
There are multiple pandemic legacies. I think all three in the top 100.
Yeah, I think they
Pandemic
are.
Legacy Season 1 used to be number 1 on the top 100.
It's still 2, so it's not slipped far.
Gosh, yes, it is, right. It's true. Yeah, so again, but we're talking about base Pandemic. And again, this kind of falls into the Carcassonne where it's like the sheer amount of board gamers this has made.
Yes.
The accessibility of this game as a gateway game. And then just like the significance in the hobby, this has been one of the biggest board games ever, one of the highest selling board games ever. There's a billion different versions, kind of like Carcassonne. So you can kind of choose whatever one you want. There are legacy versions of this game. I mean, it's like the cultural impact of Pandemic.
Yeah.
It should be in the top 100 somewhere at least. At least like 98.
I think this is a personal thing, but it's like I don't think any legacy game should be in the top 100 because
I don't know if I agree with that. We kind of disagree on that one.
We kind of disagree on this, but I think there should not because they don't create awesome experiences. They, in terms of that and the gameplay, like Pandemic Legacy Season 1 went to 1 for a reason. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really fun. But for the top 100, it's maybe a personal thing. I want games that you can play more than once. And you can't play a legacy game more than once because you literally tear up components and stuff like that. And I'm like, it just seems to go against I want a game that you can play in perpetuity, so I would replace those with just Pandemic. And also, those games wouldn't exist without Pandemic.
That's true.
That's a personal thing, and I can't argue why it's in the top 100 against it because, we've played through those games, and they definitely deserve on the what you're doing level.
Yeah.
I just don't want a game you tear up in the top 100.
That's fair. I think, again, I don't necessarily agree, but I think that's a fair take. And let us know down in the comments what your take on that is, because I think that's a kind of a fair take. And so, yeah, Pandemic, again, it's like you're just trying to save the world, and it's just like, I don't know, it's so prominent, it's so significant, and again, that's not the only reason it should be there, but it's it's also great, and again, personally, it got us into the hobby, so
got a lot of people in the hobby, and that's not
we're very
accident.
Biased in that way, but yeah, I don't know, Pandemic, kind of like Carcassonne, is one of those games, like Catan or whatever, it's like, these are the games, these are the foundations of this hobby, and I know there are games before that, but in terms of getting into the mainstream, El Grande ain't in the mainstream.
No.
It's like these games are and have been, and now there's things like Wingspan that are in the mainstream. And it's like, I do think those should be in the top 100. I do.
I totally agree.
Talk about in the mainstream. One, it's good. Codenames is a good game.
Codenames is a great game.
Second of all, it's outsold pretty much every other game on this list. Codenames has sold many copies.
Certainly since the time it's come out, I would love to see the numbers. I will bet you that in the top 3 you have Wingspan and Codenames. Wingspan's probably number 1, but in that group,
I don't know
Codenames has sold, especially if you count the entire many versions of Codenames.
We're in a whole different category.
Codenames is a fantastic clue-giving party game. Of course, you can tell because we also put just one on this list that we are fans of these types of games.
Yes.
Codenames, I think, really...
It took over.
It did, and for good reason. This is a game
There's a reason why it's this popular.
Can incorporate large groups because you're playing on teams. You're giving these kind of clues. I think the nature of you have this grid of cards, or if you watch our videos, this grid of board games. You should watch that. See that card?
One
right there?
came out last week.
You should watch it. A grid of 25 clues, and they're just different words, and you are trying to beat. You're trying to get rid of get your team to guess your clues before your opposing team guesses theirs. And so what you can do is you can give a clue that pertains to multiple of your words in the grid. And that's just something that is a clue giving kind of party game is not new, not unique, but like that one twist that Vlada put in there was just like da-da-da for 2. And I'm trying to get you to point to these 2 words with this one clue, or 3 words or 4 words if you can manage it. Is so cool. And I think it really does something different with your brain where it's like, I'm trying to find the middle point between these 3 things. How do I get something that's right in the middle so that you can see what my brain is seeing here? I think that's amazing. I think it's a really neat trick. I think that's why this has just like tickled the brain for people for so many years and spawned so many versions, including Codenames Duet, which is a 2-player cooperative version, which is my favorite way to play this game.
There's Codenames Pictures. There's like themed ones, like Disney and I think The Simpsons and stuff like that. There's like an After Dark one, of course, as there always is. But it's like, again, this game is like in Target, is around, it's hit the mainstream. I mean, Codenames, like the digital version, like a lot of huge streamers on Twitch play it.
It's really
funny because like we were talking to Ray when Ray used to work for CGE, and she was like at TwitchCon, like talking to these streamers because they didn't know it was like a board game. And she's like, yeah, this is a board game first. Like, because they've only ever played the digital version like on streams.
And why wouldn't you? It works really great.
Yeah, it does work really, really great. But you can play the digital version for free. They've obviously supported the hell out of it because it's made them a lot of money. But it's like, it's again, a cultural thing. And I think those big cultural games should just be in there. We've talked about it a bunch. Codenames is great. You just want this to replace a game in the top 100. This is more a Mike one.
2 of the top 3 I want as strictly as replacements.
Yeah, that's true.
This is Roll for the Galaxy.
Mike wants us to replace Race for the Galaxy.
Race for the Galaxy is in there, and it should be Roll for the Galaxy instead. I said it. I know a lot of people agree. I know there's a couple people out there like, no, Race is better.
There are some Race fans out there,
You know you're wrong, okay? Roll for the Galaxy cleans up some of the iconography, makes it easier to understand, makes it quicker. You get to roll just a bucket of dice. So there you have a cup full of dice, and you're rolling those dice, and you are taking actions and stuff, and you are... What's fun about this, or any of the Race for the Galaxy games, is there's basically certain phases of a turn, and certain of them, only some of them will activate. Maybe you can work on developing, settling on a planet, or working in development to give you some sort of upgrade, or shipping or producing goods and stuff. So when you roll out your dice, you're going to choose one of the phases that you want to make sure it gets activated, and every player is going to do that. So there's the fun in Roll for the Galaxy, specifically like wondering of like when we all reveal like what phases are coming up. And I'm like, I know this dude's been building up the stuff. I know you're gonna do the produce goods action. So I'm gonna do this one over here because I feel like this is gonna be settled.
Yeah, right.
And you can kind of like hedge your bets a little bit and kind of do that while you kind of, put this tile placement out in front of you, this tableau of things you're doing, these buildings and stuff, these planets rather, and developments. I just like rolling all those dice. I think it's very fun, and I think it should be there instead of Race for the Galaxy. That's my whole reason.
Yeah, I don't have much of an opinion on these, but yeah.
Very fast, 30 minutes max. Yeah. Get in and get to do some fun.
It's a better version.
You get all sorts of cool colors of dice. They have like different, breakdowns of the faces.
Are great, yeah.
And you just shake that cup like mad and then dunk it out there. It's just more fun. It's more fun to roll all those dice.
Yeah. Number 2, again, is one of those ones that, like, I would have put money that this was in the top 100.
It seems straight blasphemous that it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's not.
Yeah. Patchwork is what we're talking
about. It's Patchwork.
Again, it's like...
What?
Again, it doesn't follow necessarily the norm of the BGG top 100 of, like, big, heavy games. This is not a big, heavy game.
But so many people haven't played this game.
Yes, and that's the... And on top of that, it's so widely, like, loved that it's, like, it's so weird that it's... Again, it's just... It's one of those games where, like, let me... Keep talking about Patchwork.
So
here's it, honestly, because
it's not low, and this game is not hurting by any means by not being in the top 100. But this is a polyomino, meaning strange shaped tiles.
That's ridiculous.
Too low. tile placement game where you are making a patchwork quilt and you are trying to fill out your board as much as humanly possible. That's your one and only goal. Fill up your board as much as possible because every empty space loses you points. And you are doing this by collecting these different patches. And
For patchwork quilt?
this is something that's interesting and something that we really enjoy in games is you have to pay for these patches with buttons. Your buttons are your victory points. So you are paying victory points to take these things to hopefully make it a net positive and gaining more victory points than you're losing. And so there's that kind of currency to keep in mind. But then each patch will also take a certain amount of time and you have to move your pawn forward on the central board, the amount of space is showing on that patch. And when you get to the center of the board, your game is over. So there's these kind of dual currencies that you are considering. As you do this, you're like, how many buttons do I have to pay? How much time do I have to pay? Yep. Because that's time I don't have in the future to, take these bigger tiles. And then there's income you can get where you get buttons throughout the game, and some of the patches produce more buttons for you and stuff. There's just a lot of fun things to consider. It does a few things really, really well outside of just the tile placement, which is the best and most interesting part. But managing your buttons, managing the board, when do you selectively pass so you can advance your pawn forward and just get some money, your button money to spend, and how do you make it kind of as positive a score as you can? It's so smart. Such a great two-player game. Doesn't take a ton of space other than the giant ring of tiles you need to make.
But you can assemble that in different ways. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's like, how is it not in the top 100?
It's weird that it isn't, is all it is. It's just like, I thought it was and it wasn't, and we were just like, is it not? I thought it was in the top 50. Really. I
think this was.
To be fair, but man, it should be. It's just one of the best two-player games out there.
It's better than Gloomhaven?
Yeah, get ready.
I said it.
It's like, I don't know. It's just one of those games that's like, again, because of how popular it is, how well it's been supported, how much people enjoy it, how easy it is to get to the table, all these different things. It's just, I don't know. It just should be in the top 100. It should be.
I agree.
That's number 2. What's number 1, though? Number 1 is, I think, just for us.
This is just for us. There are some people that agree for sure, but this is another.
Agree, disagree.
This is another straight replacement. Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition should be in the top 100 instead of Terraforming Mars.
I agree. It's a better game. It's a way better game.
Yeah. We like it better. Yeah. I still like Terraforming Mars a lot.
So do I. I would still play base.
It's obviously a great game that deserves to be in the top 100.
I would always play Ares Expedition over it.
Exactly. So Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition does the things of Terraforming Mars where you're terraforming Mars crazy through card play. And Ares Expedition kind of borrows the race for the galaxy element where you are each selecting a phase of the round that you want to happen. Only phases that are selected get selected and happen. The other ones get skipped. And you are doing this to produce your resources, play cards, draw and discard cards to play in the future. And I find that cadence of the rounds much more satisfying than the simple, everyone take 2 actions and go around and around until everybody passes, draft some cards and reset. I like the fact that you don't know all of the phases that are going to happen or if anyone's are going to be skipped. And if I select a phase to happen, like the production, I get a little bonus for being the person that selected that phase, and that's extra delicious too. But if I'm pretty sure you're going to choose for us to produce, I might choose another phase, forego that bonus because I'm like, well, I'm still getting a good amount out of that, so I want to make sure this thing happens. I think it's just really interesting. I think it's much more interesting.
It's just, exactly. It's like, I've said it multiple times. I'm not going to beat the dead horse, but it's like, it takes everything I love about Terraforming Mars, keeps all those things, and gets rid of all the stuff I either didn't like or didn't care about. And so it's like, and then what it does is then it adds in that kind of like race for the galaxy, like taking action, follow actions. Like it's just like, okay, cool. So you just also added in a thing that made this whole thing more interesting. Great. And so like for me, it's just like I will play Terraforming Mars base game, but I will play Ares Expedition every single time over it. Every single time. There's never a time where I'm like, oh no, I need the tile placement, and I don't care. It's just like, I'll always play that. So this one's definitely more for us, but it's like, for me, I'm like, get it out of there, get this new one in here. I know there's people who disagree, and that's fine. But Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition is, it's a better game by a million miles.
It works so much better for us. It's quicker, most of the play is simultaneous, and that's really nice. I really like what you do. Good. There's an expansion now that adds some ways to play, including cooperative. I think the co-op is really neat. So it's just, it gives us most of the things that we really liked from Terraforming Mars, which is playing those cards and building that engine of production, and that's just very much intact. And it smooths out a lot of the other edges. You don't have to pay to keep cards, which I enjoy in Terraforming Mars, but for this version, it's like you just get cards and you can ditch them anytime for $3.
I think it's easy.
That's
It opens up
very
the game
nice.
more, yeah.
So it kind of opens up the game more. It works better for us. And that's why it's number 1 on our list, because it's a saucy choice. Speaking of saucy choices and saucy people, you see these people down here? All Spice Masters down there.
Wow, yeah.
They are our patrons. They are the people that are probably currently skipping this video to watch what games should we not see in the top 100 of Board Game Geek. We do have that queued up right here. That is live right now on Patreon. If you're not a patron and you just want to see that video, you can also pay to just watch that video. If you're not sure if you want to subscribe on a monthly basis, it's totally fine. Whatever you want to do is cool. We appreciate the support no matter what, including simply watching this video, giving a thumb up, and if you're new to us, maybe subscribing. We really appreciate that. Anything last to say?
Big shout out to
Nick?
Ivy Studios for sponsoring this top 10. And
Thank
I
you so
think
much.
That's it, y'all.
That's it, everybody. Back to end, and you know, just don't worry about the Zenith Corporation, and we'll see you all in the next top 10.
Bye. What should we do for a? I guess that's for kind of normal thumbnail.
Sure.
Cool. So it was like, I'll make the thumbnail today.
So Jimmy has it, yeah. Big shouts out to watching that video. We appreciate each of you. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Restoration Games, Board Game Geek, Garfield Games, Arctic Tables, and Tobias. Now listen, home update here. The house will be done in 2 weeks because all we got to do is put a slip and slide from the kitchen to the backyard. So get ready for that. It's going to be just ready for summer 2 weeks from now.